Today on the Topping Show, Bud Light folds of honor folds, well, flat on social media. VA tried to ban the iconic World War II sailor kissing picture. MSNBC claims Biden is now smarter, sharper, and better than ever, but gets visually ratioed on social media. Dodge Charger ICE model details revealed. Apple blocks Epic Games from launching their own app, and 6 brands of ground cinnamon are being recalled due to lead contamination. All of that and much, much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's a joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button and let your friends know, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have the Dodge Charger ICE model. Some of the details are coming to the surface. Now, the downside is this is going to be released after the EV model, which, yeah, EV muscle cars with having speakers blare what used to be a beautiful V8 symphony engine note. I mean, it was a thing of beauty from Dodge back in the day. Yeah, we'll talk about that abomination perhaps another time. Now, going to the internal combustion engine model. Now, the good news is, it looks like they're going to have some coupes, which, interestingly enough, are getting rarer and rarer in fun cars these days. I still can't believe the new Honda Civic, they don't have an option for a two-door. Which, truth be told, I think the Honda Civic Gen 10, granted, I'm a little biased. I love my little Civic Si with the stick shift. Stick shift by default, how all cars should obviously be. But now with the latest generation Honda Civic, there's no such thing as a two-door. It's gone. And more cars are acquiescing because many consumers are having families, they're growing the number of people in the vehicle. Well, they're not growing in terms of growing up in the vehicle. That'd be kind of sad and tragic. They're growing the size of their family more accurately most of the time. So it is getting harder and harder to find coupes. So it looks like they will have a coupe option, as well as the traditional. They'll have the 4-door. Now it's going to be delayed because again they want to get the EV production out, ready to go because all 12 people are really interested in buying it. Kidding, there might be 13 people realistically who want an electric Dodge Charger. Now, it looks like this will be produced in the fourth quarter of 2025, so that's quite a long way away. And of course, the drivetrain, now, granted, it's better than just an EV, so we're getting some gas option. However, it is anemic and boring to say the least for the purists who love American muscle. I say that because Dodge has been known for decades upon decades for making the iconic Hemi engine, especially the V8. I mean, the V8 is great. I was going to say rhyme moderately intended. And now, granted, it's owned by Stellantis, which is the big holding company, like General Motors, but triple the number of brands. And again, Stellantis is headquartered over in Europe. They bought out Fiat. Oh, Fiat actually technically bought out Chrysler as well as Dodge back in the day when they went bankrupt so bad in 2009 they actually had to sell themselves out. Now, that being said, it's all about economies of scale and using the same engine for multiple vehicle platforms, which obviously does decrease cost. So instead of having a good old V8 Hemi engine, they'll now come with a inline 6, which again is great for a BMW. They perfected that platform for decades. It's what the customers expect. It's what they know, they love, they cherish. But if you're going from a V8 to an inline 6, now they say it'll be a 3-liter inline 6, and it will produce either 420 to 550 horsepower, depending on what trim level you get and what specific SKU of model. And they note that it'll be a twin turbo, so it'll make some funny, cool sounds, although I would say normally those sounds are reserved for Japanese imports and crazy, awesome Lamborghini Huracans, though not awesome enough to have 3 pedals. They're automatic these days, which, again, don't get me started. Now, I don't know how, because, again, this is the same drivetrain they're using in multiple of the Stellantis products. They note that the Dodge 6-pack HO, which, interestingly enough, I'm surprised it's not a disclaimer, given how litigious the United States is these days with lawsuits. So it's not a disclaimer saying this won't actually give you a 6-pack. That'd be kind of hilarious and ironic if they actually gave you a coach or a personal trainer. But nevertheless, they know that the Dodge Charger 6-pack HO, known for high output, not for the hose, although some hoes might purchase this vehicle, incidentally enough, they note that it's beefed up for muscle car duty. Now, they note that the Wagoneer produces 510 horsepower and the Ram makes 540 horsepower. The Chargers is boosted up to 550. Dodge has yet to reveal the torque figures for the gas engines, but the Ram's Hurricane engine pumps out 469 foot-pounds of torque in the standard output and 521 out of the high output form. Let's see here. They claim that it's going to produce more horsepower and torque than the old V8s, which, again, still apples to oranges. I mean, you could have just perfected the V8 and made that even more powerful and efficient. Hard to beat a good old Elephant engine, which I think there was an iconic 1,000 horsepower crate engine, which, again, if I was part of that club where I think Jay Leno jokes it's the more money and brains club, how hilarious and entertaining would it be to put a Elephant V8 engine into like a little Honda Civic? It'd be highly entertaining, highly impractical, but a lot of fun. Now they say that's going to have similar styling, but a couple key little trim features that'll make it different. This is kind of funny how they brag about these things. So again, this is originally an article from Car and Driver. Now they note that the Charger 6-pack will feature a similar cabin to that of the Charger Daytona. The interior features a standard 12.3-inch central touchscreen, which, again, a true driving enthusiast doesn't give a damn about touchscreen. They want to actually drive the vehicle and have fun. That's why if you look at the track models of like some of the bigger Porsches and Mustangs, they do like the factory delete of the radio because there's no reason to have the radio on a track. You're listening to the beautiful symphony of the exhaust note, the engine, and you're listening to the vehicle. I mean, truth be told, there's also strip out unnecessary things like AC to decrease the weight of the vehicle. So it's funny, they're talking about, oh yeah, it's a muscle car, it's going to have a 12-inch central touchscreen, which to me thinks, oh great, here's another big thing that'll probably break in a couple years and it'll be hard to replace because electronics are inherently disposable in many cases and even more difficult to find old spare parts. When's the last time someone actually repaired a Samsung S10? Probably never. Mine still is hanging on by a thread. They note that it'll also have a 10.3-inch digital gauge cluster and an option to upgrade to a 16-inch unit. They also note that there's an interior ambient lighting with 64 colors available. Woohoo! 64 colors, you say? I don't know who's worse at marketing. Chrysler, Dodge, and Stellantis, or Car and Driver. They also note, now they do have a retro reference saying they might have a pistol grip gear shifter, though not quite circular heated steering wheel. Now, it would be great. Again, there's no official... the odds are overwhelmingly they'll be automatic only, which is, yet again, an anemic, boring thing to do for a sports car. But if they could have the pistol grip, if they could actually make it have 3 pedals, that's what I'm really hoping for. Because, again, that would be unique, because very few cars these days actually have a manual transmission, though it should be by default. That'd be a very unique value add for the muscle car category. Especially because, again, the Camaro is basically dead. GM and all their infinite wisdom, or not infinite, what's the opposite of wisdom? Foolishness? Mary Barra wants to turn the Camaro into a 2-door EV SUV. Yeah. Now, they say that the gas models will also feature Charger branding on the dashboard. So, actually, it's model year 2025, but it should come out Q4 calendar year 2024. Another fun little weird nuance with car models being named. The year of the model is actually produced prior to that. So it'll be interesting to see. We got some comments. Let's read them because comments are fun. Let's get some other opinions. Peeb79 says, quote, I really like how this isn't a blatant modern copy of a classic previous Challenger was. I think it looks really sharp, but I wonder if it'll be too expensive even if it's base form. The standard output car will need to undercut the Mustang GT to make any sense at all. Unquote. Getting 16 likes. Yeah, that's going to be an issue for them. Although, with economies of scale, they're sharing a lot of the same components that they manufacture in their dozens of other vehicles that they produce. Maybe that will definitely help out decrease the cost. I don't know if they'll be able to beat the Mustang. And it'll also be apples to oranges because the Mustang GT comes with a V8, as all muscle cars should, I would argue, by default, and a good old stick shift, which, again, I think it's fair to say that the Mustang did win the Pony War. They also never subsequently stopped production of the Mustang throughout their entire history, where Dodge, as well as General Motors with Chevrolet, they've had times where they paused or even stopped production of their muscle cars throughout the years. EK383, a name as uninspiring as a BMW model trim, but nevertheless, EK383 says, quote, I'm a big fan of the sound inside and out of a straight 6 powered rides with aftermarket or aggressive factory exhaust system, unquote, getting 12 likes. I don't know what this person is thinking. Nevertheless, 301 Blackout says, quote, I'm disappointed the V8s are no longer part of the Charger lineup, but otherwise Dodge nailed it. On paper, it's a lot better than the old Charger, and they still offer the gas option for those not interested in EV Charger. I also like that they offer 2-door and 4-door versions. My only concern is that there's no longer a cheaper, lower spec base model offered. I guess Dodge intends to, on this being an all-out performance vehicle instead of being a rental fleet favorite, though there may be some hope for Dodge after all. Unquote, getting 5 likes, which, yeah, that's another issue. One of the best things about the previous Dodge portfolio is that they had one of the greatest price point diversities, bar none. I think one of the Challengers actually started like 26 grand for like the little small anemic V6 engine with, very bare bones. And we went up to over $100,000 for the Demon Hellcat XY Banana Falcon, whatever the trim level is actually called, which had basically it was technically street legal tires, but they were basically race slicks built for the drag, 700 plus horsepower. I mean, from an engineering and offering perspective, that is pretty cool to offer that many options to the consumers, because again, then you can capture multiple points of the market, from people who are first trying to get their first vehicle all the way up to big gearhead enthusiasts who want the most horsepower you could possibly cram into one of those vehicles. So I definitely think, and we're seeing this with a lot of automotive brands, is they're consolidating how many offerings they have. And unfortunately, it does sound like this is going to be very few in terms of the number of SKUs and different trim levels that you can order. So that definitely is a concern. Now, the Mustang also has the market beaten. Now, controversially enough, they do offer, I believe, an inline 4 and a V6 options for the Mustang, which, be moderately interesting. It's kind of hilarious to have an inline 4 with a Mustang just based on the old heritage of the vehicle. But if that's an aggressively low enough price point, it might be entertaining, a good way to get someone into the brand, and they work up, and then eventually they spend a little more money, and they buy the higher trim levels, and they build that brand relationship and the brand enthusiasm for Ford. Do one or two more comments here. You have Optimus Prime says, quote, I really like this, but unfortunately, this is going to cost. They don't seem keen on a Turbo 4 yet. Quote, they may be forced at some point, but if they offer a variant other than the Turbo 6 with 370 horsepower under 40K, they might be onto something. I'm cooking 6 likes, 1 downvote. Staka8071 says, quote, I feel like a broken record at this point, but if they offer a manual, it'd be the only over 300 horsepower all-wheel drive car with manual other than the Porsche 911 C4S/C4 GTS. It would sell like hotcakes in the Midwest, unquote, getting 15 likes and 3 downvotes. And yes, that would be a very unique value prompt, especially because, Subaru used to be iconic with their stick shift with the WRX XTI, which, of course, in their infinite, what's the opposite of wisdom? Foolishness, they killed that iconic piece of engineering, which to me, that is the Subaru brand. I know they have many vehicles that are also iconic, but to me, that was also one of the pinnacle performance vehicles they manufactured throughout the years. You also have Sylvie saying, quote, real Dodge fans remember the Slant 6 and Charger doesn't need a Hemi to be good, unquote. Controversial to say the least, that statement. It actually had 12 likes and 2 downvotes. See here. Do one or two more. Let's see. JT656 says, smart move. The EV is a failure. Not enough range combined with the nation's infrastructure, which is not ready for prime time. Of course, I prefer a turbo 6.4, but at least the HO version will offer similar power to a naturally aspirated 6.4 without the fear range of an EV. I love that they added all-wheel drive for the 7 likes, 1 downlike, which, again, all-wheel drive, especially in the Midwest, is a big value prompt. It'll be interesting to see how well this... let me know in the comments, what do you think is the ratio going to be in terms of... on this video, another friendly reminder to like it, although it might get ratioed in terms of more down votes than up votes. Although some people say there's no such thing as bad marketing. Bud Light would definitely beg to differ, but... in all, getting back to the actual point, what do you think the ratio will be in terms of the number of internal combustion engine chargers sold versus EVs? Is it going to be as crazy as a 4-to-1? So for every 4 internal combustion engine chargers are sold, they sell 1 EV? Do you think it'll be about the same, or do you think they actually might sell more EVs than the actual ICE engine model? As always, it'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Apple blocking Epic Games from making an app. Now, this is perhaps one of the biggest controversies. They've been suing each other back and forth for a couple of years now. We have a little LinkedIn article from Kara Reinhardt, and they note that Apple blocks Epic Games store plans. They note specifically that Apple has terminated the Epic Games developer account in Europe, effectively blocking the Fortinet maker from launching its own app store on the iOS in the European Union, the company said in a blog post. Apple had announced it would permit third-party app stores in accordance with the new EU law going into effect last week, but now Epic is, quote, verifiably untrustworthy in a letter from its lawyers to the developer. Quote, Apple is retaliating against Epic for speaking out against Apple's unfair and illegal business practices, unquote. That is from CEO of Epic Games, Tim Sweeney. They also note that the letter says assurances from Sweeney were undercut by, quote, public attacks on Apple's policies, compliance plan, and business model. Spotify is also having a similar battle. Now, going to Epic Games' website, which, granted, it's epicgames.com, it's going to be their perspective, but they specifically announced, quote, we have announced that Apple has approved our Epic Games Sweden AP developer account. We intend to use the account to bring the Epic Games Store and Fortnite iOS devices to Europe thanks to the Digital Marketing Act, DMA. To our surprise, Apple has terminated that account, and now we cannot develop the Epic Games Store for iOS. This is a serious violation of the DMA and shows that Apple has no intention of following the allowing true competition on iOS devices. And of course, they go on for several paragraphs talking about how they're a gatekeeper, which, again, the big multi-billion-dollar question is, Apple built their own platform, they built their own app store. A lot of people are going to argue till they're blue in the face that they have complete and total control of the environment that they themselves built, they themselves host, and they pay for. And all this stuff isn't magically in the cloud. I mean, all IT is in the cloud these days, but there's no, a wise man once said, there's no such thing as the cloud, it's just someone else's computer. So Apple is paying to host all these things in the cloud, probably maybe a virtual private cloud, or given their scale, they probably have their own data centers as well as redundancies on AWS perhaps. But all that costs them a bunch of money, and again, if they were to have an app, it would be less money going to Apple because of the revenue share breakdowns. So again, this is going to be, I can't but think this is just going to be one of those cases where there's so much litigation in so many countries that these lawsuits are being filed. I'm not sure when they will actually be, there will ever, if any, be an actual final case. It might make it up to the United States Supreme Court perhaps, but I'm not too surprised because, again, Apple wants to have more control of their environment. They want more of that revenue share. And in terms of the age-old saying, build your own platform, in this case, Epic Games they would need a disproportional amount of revenue to what they're currently making because, again, they would need to make a new phone platform. There's basically a duopoly when it comes to operating systems, aka app stores. You have the Google, which they own Android. So if you have a Samsung phone, you have the Google store on your phone, and in order to actually have an app there, Google has to sign off on it, and they get the revenue share. And then you have Apple, which has the iOS store. I mean, unfortunately, no one has a BlackBerry anymore. That company they're technically still around with cybersecurity software, but when it comes to phones, an overwhelming majority of the market is those two operating systems and those two app stores. So, again, it'll be interesting to see what the final ruling is, but I'm not too surprised Apple is pushing back on this. And, of course, they're going to appeal it. But let me know in the comments, do you think actually long-term will Apple actually win? Or do you think they'll have to acquiesce and allow all these proliferation of apps and lose some of that revenue share? As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the culture part of the podcast, you have Bud Light Folds of Honor tweet, well, mostly folds flat. Now, Folds of Honor is a great nonprofit helping a lot of veterans, and prior, Bud Light was pretty good at driving revenue and helping, drive donations to that organization. And truth be told, I've seen them in a couple of veteran events my IT company has sponsored previously in the past, and they seem to have a lot of good employees at Folds of Honor. Now, that being said, I don't know how good they are at marketing because they're continuing their relationship with Bud Light when right now, Bud Light is basically toxic waste for a brand. It could only bring your brand down. I mean, they're spending more money than they ever had before on marketing, and yet, turns out having a trans activist as a spokesman selling beer to children is not a smart thing to do. They spent $185,000 giving Dylan Mulvaney a single can of Bud Light with Dylan's face plastered on to celebrate 365 days of being a woman, and they lost about 1.4 billion in sales, which, again, that perhaps is the largest negative return on investment in business history in terms of a marketing campaign. Think about that. You spend $185,000 and you lose $1.5 billion. That's almost unprecedented. Now, needless to say, I almost feel like Harrison Ford, it belongs in a museum. I mean, that should be a use case for businesses for decades to learn upon in terms of understanding not just, the morally vacuous thing of trying to sell a product to a child that's not appropriate, such as alcohol, but also knowing your clients and aka reading the room and hiring the right people. Their VP of Marketing, Alicia Heiderchild, will certainly be remembered. Now, this little post from Bud Light, they actually did do one thing right, which, granted, the bar is so low, them doing anything right actually does impress me. Now, they actually did successfully tag the social media profile of Folds of Honor, which, interestingly enough, they didn't do that successfully with a couple of celebrities that, again, they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for all these celebrities and all these different brands. And about half the time, they don't successfully tag the people, which, again, that's like social media 101, one would think. Now, they have a picture of, what is this guy named? Zach Bryan with an acoustic guitar and black jeans, apparently. Which, again, as we all know, men should always suit up, and on the occasion, blue jeans are, of course, appropriate. But maybe it's the photo, but it looks like black jeans, which there's a time and place for everything. I'm surprised he's actually in public on a stage, allegedly singing. It's not a video clip, it's just a picture. Now, the text before the picture says, quote, "To celebrate hitting the road with Zach Bryan and Folds of Honor on the Quittin' Time Tour, we're giving away tickets to see him live. Chat with him on our Facebook or Instagram for a chance to win," unquote. Which, again, perhaps the people in marketing at Bud Light are inebriated and drinking Bud Light, so perhaps they're just too drunk to do a job with a modicum of intelligence. But they didn't have links. So they're telling you to win these tickets, which, again, that might be a good opportunity. I'm not sure how many people like Zach Bryan. I mean, heaven forbid, it'd be kind of ironic or sad if you won the ticket, but in order to, participate, you had to drink a Bud Light. I mean, heaven forbid, that would certainly sour the situation. But they didn't leave the links to actually chat with their Facebook and Instagram team for a chance to win. So, again, this is a huge burden on the prospective client, or in this case, the sweepstakes, so the people who want to win this. Because, again, you want to make this as convenient as possible. I mean, it's no different than when I'm trying to drive attendance for an event for my cybersecurity company, and we'll say, hey, we're doing cigars and cybersecurity, we're doing shoots full auto suppress security fears. Every single time I do that, it takes not even 2 seconds to put the URL for the registration link to take you to that page to register. And yet they couldn't take 2 or 3 seconds to put the links to chat with their Facebook or Instagram. Because again, that's how you win the tickets. So in order to do that, you now have to go to a separate app. You have to type in their social media, and then you have to start chatting with them. So you're adding steps and complexity, and you're just increasing the threshold, making it, and again, it doesn't sound that burdensome or not, it doesn't sound that hard, but again, you're trying to entice the consumer to, you want to make it as simple and easy as possible. And yet they seem to just make lives harder on themselves. Now, in terms of the feedback, it looks like not very many people liked it. So within, again, this is earlier last week, it got only 11,000 views, which again, for a multi-billion-dollar brand is basically nothing. And yet only 81 people liked it, which is almost mathematically seemingly impossible because allegedly they have more than 51 or 81, in this case, people working at Anheuser-Busch InBev. Allegedly, there's more than 81 fans of Zach Bryan, and there's more than 81 fans of Folds of Honor, and yet only 81 people actually liked it. And interestingly enough, this is even more pathetic, they only got 16 comments, which usually when they're giving away free products and services, they get hundreds of comments because people want to, I don't know if these are real people or bots, but allegedly there's hundreds of people who want to win cases of Bud Light, which I don't know if they're just depressed or it's a hard time in their life or they need some type of harsh chemical to surround their house with to ward off the demons and the thieves, perhaps. That I'm trying to think of a legitimate use case for actually having Bud Light in the household. Good way to drive people out if you want to wrap up a party, perhaps. You're having a fun party and it's time you want people to leave. You don't have to actually tell them to leave, just bust out a case of Bud Light and they all see that and go, sorry, John or Kevin, we got to get going. It's time to go. So perhaps that might be a good use case for it. But going to the comments, most of them are pretty bad. Now, interesting enough, talk about unpopular, but I would also argue a great observation. Well, not really. Now, I actually said Folds of Honor is a great organization. It'll be interesting to see what the post ratio will be, unquote. No one liked it, but I said it, so I thought I'd be interested. And that, again, is my social media profile for Twitter for this show. It's the Topping Show. Now, the first comment that actually gets any likes at all is from Julia Broderick. She simply said, not an apology, unquote, getting 12 likes. Now you have, let's see here, a couple of people doing the easy wishes hashtag sweepstakes, which, again, there has to be an automated feature, some type of automation, because they're not asking you to do this to win these particular tickets. Cajun Youngstrom says, chat with who, unquote, getting 1 like. Bow-tied peasant says, quote, your brand is dead. just cut your losses, unquote, getting 7 likes. You have Nicholas Brown saying go woke, go broke, getting 0 likes, but 4 views. Will says, congratulations, you will be forever associated with it, unquote, getting 4 likes, which, again, it being a reference to Dylan Mulvaney. Apollo says, quote, it would be easier to make a commercial with women in bikinis, unquote, getting 2 likes, which, again, given the track record of success, again, they were the #1 selling beer for 20 years. That's unprecedented success. And it was the easiest job on the planet for the marketing department. All they had to do was have sexy women in bikinis with a Bud Light and have Bud Light logos at sports balls, games, and country music shows. Like that was working for 20 plus years. And yet Alyssa Hireschild, she came on the staff and she actually said, quote, we think Bud Light is a fratty brand. We want to change that, unquote. She certainly did change and have a phenomenally large impact on the company, to say the least. Hilariously enough, she deleted her LinkedIn. She was very proud to be the first female VP at the company, or marketing executive. Now you have Apollo saying go woke, go broke, and that got 2 likes. Then you have the show additional replies, including those that make it offensive content, which, of course, the bonus button, we're going to click that. And we see River City Dude. I don't know if it's actually pejorative. It's just someone, a gal in glasses, and it's just a gif of her saying very gay. No one liked it, but that was a super secret hidden comment. And again, it didn't really drive much engagement. Not a lot of people liked it. And I mean, culturally speaking, the brand is certainly just continuing to suffer, even though, again, they're just spending more and more money on marketing, kind of trying to replicate the old marketing success. But, I mean, they changed everything with that brand endorsement with Dylan Mulvaney. And again, they haven't addressed the elephant or the Dylan in the room, which, again, the top comment we see periodically covering this for almost a year is people want an apology. Now, I don't think the CEO and former CIA operative Brendan Whitworth would actually give one, but I do think if they were to do that, they would gain some sales back. Probably won't be the 30% of sales, or by some metrics, 50% of sales in some cases that they've lost, but I think they get a fair amount of their sales back. So let me know in the comments, do you think it's too late at this point to actually give out an apology for trying to sell beer to kids and hiring Dylan Mulvaney? Or do you think that would do a little bit of good? And then when's the last time you tuned into the Zach Bryan band? And would you go to a Zach Bryan concert if you had to drink a Bud Light? Like, instead of buying a ticket, you had to show up and you had to drink a beer in order to get in. Would you do that, or would you simply walk away in horror? As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, the VA facilities try to ban the iconic World War II soldier kissing a gal picture. And thankfully, because of the huge social media backlash, they actually acquiesced and they said, oh no, we're actually not going to ban this picture. So this was first brought to attention by End Wokeness. They said, quote, if not for X, these images would be banned from all VA facilities by the Biden administration. Again, it's one of the most prolific, iconic pictures of World War II. And it's the sailor coming back home and quite literally sweeping the girl off her feet. Well, I guess one foot, her one leg is kicking out. That's one of the most iconic pictures of the war. And truth be told, of course, it's been used for decades. And from End Wokeness, this got 1.3 million views and 37,000 likes. Now, one of the first responses was Washington Ghost, and they say they reversed it, question mark, got 179 likes. And this End Wokeness replied, and it is an article from thefederalist.com, and they say the VA axis plan to ban VJ Day photo over lack of inclusivity, unquote, getting 794 likes. So they wanted to ban that because they had 2 white folks kissing. They wanted to ban one of the most famous pictures in history because of that. Which also shows the priorities of the U.S. government of their time, energy, and resources, like what they're up to on an average day. Now, some of the top comments comes from Paul Zazupa. He says, quote, if not for X, we wouldn't have even known the VJ Day Times Square's photos were banned. Sunlight rules, unquote, getting 152 likes. Joshua Walker, again, says, if not for X, we would be under direct tyranny right now. Elon most likely saved America, getting 204 likes. Well, full disclosure, I also did like that. Kenzie Maria says, quote, he won't stop until he's gone. And it's a picture of Biden with pink, bright hair. What do you call it? Heart earrings? And it says Biden X, but the BID, the Biden, but the E in the Biden is a trans flag. They got 409 likes. That was quite viral, to say the least. Let's see. Peacemo says, quote, citizen journalism is taking over legacy media, unquote, and it's a giant picture of X. It got 110 likes. Western Lensman says, true citizen journalism that exposes this woke excess and platform and supports it is imperative. Well done, getting 138 likes. Democrat Media TM says simply, who else is fed up with the bribing admin, unquote, getting 258 likes. And yes, I do have many speaking ineptitudes, and I always joke when we first started the show, no subscribers basically, and stumbled over my words a lot, spoke too fast, and thankfully more and more subscribers, the better I've been able to speak. So I do have a theory that if you click subscribe, it may very well help in my speaking ineptitudes and decreasing them. Now, I say that right now because this person says, who else is fed up with the bribing admin? I wasn't actually misspeaking right there. I believe it was actually a pun on the bribery allegations and have surrounded the campaign. Well, not campaign. The campaign is presidency. Gunter Eagleman also said, good work, 100%, getting 255 likes. Not Democrat or Republican says, quote, so drag shows, LGBTQ stuff, rainbow flags, and BLM stuff are all cool, but a sailor coming home from after the war kissing his lady is banned because they are both white? Got it. Unquote, getting 56 likes, which, yeah, again, it shows their priorities and what they value. Hank says, quote, these photographs are a celebration of a triumphant moment for our nation, a symbol of the end of a conflict. To even consider banning them is to consider erasing the sacrifices of our veterans. Never deleting this app. Unquote, getting 61 likes. Valentin Gomez says, quote, as part of a military family, we love this picture. We are more pissed off about having trans admirals and generals. Unquote, getting 83 likes. Amuse simply says truth, getting 31 likes. And just overwhelming support. Because again, one of the most dangerous and heinous things to do is erase history, as any good book will tell you. Granted, you probably won't read those books at a public school in the United States these days, but I cannot recommend enough reading Animal Farm as well as 1984, both written by George Orwell, who was well ahead of his time, and is quite actually depressing when you read the books and see, oh dear God, some of society is worse than the books. So they're not happy books, but they're all too real and I think important for folks to read these days. Now, going on to the cultural part of the podcast, you have Vivek and Trump's speech highlight on the border, inflation, and the deep state going viral. Now, this is on Vivek's personal X Twitter profile account, and he has a quick little speech to Trump. And without further ado, I believe his text is just a carbon copy of the actual speech, and truth be told, his voice is a heck of a lot better than mine, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and play that really quick.
If you want to seal the border, vote Trump. If you want to restore law and order in this country, vote Trump. If you want to defeat the deep state, vote Trump. If you want to fight inflation, vote Trump. If you want to revive national pride in this country, vote Trump. If you want to revive our national identity in this country, vote Trump. If you want to make America great again, vote Trump. That's how we're going to win this in a landslide in November, like Reagan delivered in 1980. If you want...
And as youth may say, it went viral, to say the least, getting over 2.1 million views in the first 48 hours of posting, as well as 98,000 likes, which is, again, one of the most liked things Vivek has done in about a year. Now, again, I think those are all really effective points, especially for the campaign, because, again, you're looking at some of these polls, some of the top things Americans are prioritizing in the upcoming election is immigration, the wall, or lack thereof a wall, as specifically the illegal immigration flooding the United States, the security concerns around that, the economic concerns around that, as well as inflation. So those are all the top points and all the top things that people are starting to talk around over the water cooler about, and that people are going to take into account when they're voting in the upcoming presidential election. And I think, granted, those are a lot of bullet points. I'm one of those people where, again, in order to actually solve problems, you do have to be more elaborate and talk about more details. But for political messaging, usually you want to keep it shorter and better. Granted, again, this is a preamble to a long political speech, but I think it's pretty compelling. Now, going to the top comments, you have Paul Zupa saying, quote, very well said, Vivek. The solution is simple. Vote Trump. He will do the exact opposite of what Joe Biden has done, and only that will save America. Unquote, getting 1.7 thousand likes. Now, we do have our favorite leftist. Now, no, I don't really like this person, but I do follow this person on X Twitter, so we get some contrarian statements, and life gets a little bit boring if you're in an echo chamber, and this person is very much far left. Now, Luke chimed in, again, this is Luke Zaleski, and he said he's famous for his point of pride that he pins on his profile, is writing an article for GQ where he talks about how it's bad for boys to play football, which kind of tells you everything you need to know about him. He says, quote, "Deals with devils Vivek, this will not end well for America or anyone who attaches themselves to Trump, just like it never does. Think Pence, what are his career prospects?" I'm quoting 150 likes. Well, it's still being a mentally vacuous statement. Many people, or specifically 100 people, did like it. Granted, 20 people respond. I can't but wonder, did he get ratioed? I'll dive in and actually examine that really quick. And he says, anyone who attaches themselves to Trump, think Pence. Well, I mean, Pence, truth be told, I don't even know what he was really famous for. I know he was the governor, I think, of Indiana, but I don't really think he has any. He's older in age, but I don't know what his long-term career track is. And if anything, Trump helped increase his popularity because he famously wrote a book that then shilled it on CNN, which increased his wealth because obviously book sales and interviews. So I don't think it's actually negative for Pence to be VP. It's a huge career highlight. Very, very few people in history get to say that they actually served in that opportunity. So I don't think it's actually bad. Now, one of the first responses to Luke comes from Donna Coy, saying Mike made his own choices, or Mike Pence made his own choices. Kimberly Andrews said, I don't trust Vivek. I never had. He is deep with Soros and Elise. Trump, stay away from him. Unquote, getting 0 likes. You also have, scroll down a little bit more. I was going to say, I guess I need to upgrade to the double XY Banana Falcon level of premium support on X Twitter. Because I got the little blue check mark, and I thought I was supposed to eliminate all the ads, but I still see a couple ads here. Yeah, Samantha Lee simply said Pence did it to himself, getting 1 like. Let's see. Tirwaya says, quote, Trump made poor choices for the first time around when he was a novice at the political game. This time he won't. Pence would never had any political career prospects if Trump didn't pick him for VP. Most people didn't even know or hear about him. Unquote, getting 3 likes, which, yeah, I can't help but think, and people in Indiana probably knew him, but yeah, he was, when he chose Mike Pence, a lot of people were wondering, who the heck is he? So if anything, it increases popularity for sure. Let's see. San Diego says, remember record low unemployment for people of color and females, a bustling economy, crime was penalized, ubiquitous support for law enforcement, border security, and law and order. All your libs care about is spending my tax dollars on Ukraine and printing money like toilet paper, unquote. Getting 3 likes. Although, I mean, Ukraine definitely needs more money. We've only spent $200 billion between cash as well as physical arms, armament, and all that stuff. It's actually funding their pensions and small businesses, their retirement plans, the cigarettes, pretty much everything. And a lot of it's going missing. Who would have thought sending all that money with 0 accountability and money would just walk away and disappear? Ah, yes, anyone with a modicum of intelligence or historic knowledge of Ukraine, where, again, for decades, even CNN and Wall Street Post, Washington, all these, everyone was very much concise, saying it was one of the most corrupt places on the planet. Now, going back to the actual most responses, again, those are Luke Zaleski's, people responding to Luke Zaleski. Going back to the main comment section from Vivek, let's see here. Scrolling down, we have DV saying, quote, and if Trump wants these things to happen, Vivek for VP. Getting 1.1 thousand likes. Let's see here. News Nomad says VP energy right here, and it's a clip of Vivek speaking, getting 210 likes. Sassafras84 says, quote, I want American lives to matter again. Joe and the Democrats are allowing an invasion that is killing us. I want law and order back. I want deportations. I want a closed border. I want a president who cares about us and puts us first, unquote. Getting 1,000 likes, which is, yeah, in terms of the government resource allocation, I believe New York is giving illegal immigrants about $10,000. I think that's a lifetime, but they're giving them gift cards, hotels, 3 warm meals a day. And yet there are homeless veterans in the United States, which, again, shows the government priorities and is not you or I. Scrolling down, you have Patriot 911 saying tonight will be the end of Nikki Haley's career. And yes, it was, getting 468 likes. Let's see here. Califor Flex says, well, I think Vivek hinted at Vice yesterday. Vivek would make a great VP. If you agree, give a fellow Patriot a follow for immediate follow back, and 124 likes. James Jeanette says, Trump Vivek 2024, let's return America to her former glory, unquote, getting 529 likes. Let's see here. Not Jerome Powell says, quote, if you want to keep my beautiful printing billions flowing, vote Trump. Unquote, getting 127 likes. So we do have a couple contrarian statements brewing to the surface. Let's see here. Walker says, quote, is Trump going to end the Fed or just appoint Jerome Powell again and print trillions of dollars out of thin air? Getting 299 likes. Scrolling down more and more. Chano Bison says, quote, exactly, Biden opened the border wide open with your tax dollars. He wants to turn them into voters, and quote, getting 41 likes, which there are many politicians are already saying that they should be able to turn them into U.S. military voluntary employees. That's a nice way of saying they're going to want to have illegal immigrants in the U.S. military in order to give them a pathway to citizenship. Which, again, if you don't know the founding fathers or the documents or the morals and values of our country and just immediately join the military, that could, as the left like to probably, they love the word, that could be problematic, unquote. Got another contrary, Majortor 999 says, quote, why didn't he do these things when he was in the first time? Unquote, getting 198 likes, which, yeah, my 2 cents or my 3 cents, it used to be 2 cents, but 40-year hyperinflation thanks to our government. Got charged 3 cents. Though, it is still free to click the subscribe button. My theory is that Trump trusted way too many people in government to actually do what he told them, and he wasn't aggressive enough. And truth be told, they lied to him a lot. I mean, Trump wanted to get all the U.S. soldiers out of Syria, and the military lied to him. They said, oh yeah, well, we did that. The troops are out. They never left. And even under oath, a couple of years later, the generals admitted, yeah, we lied to the president, and they had zero ramifications, basically. Which also shows you, their government priorities and who is actually punished and held accountable. Do one or two more here. Albert Latham simply says, Vivek, very definition of high energy. I'm getting 10 likes and hundreds of comments getting between 0 and 10 likes talking about Vivek's energy. So again, it'll be interesting to see. There's all the speculation on who's going to be named VP. He certainly has that type of energy, and he certainly is able to promulgate a lot of the ideals of the founding fathers, and more importantly, he actually kind of spells out and gives you steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, D, and how he would achieve what he wants to achieve, which, again, I think one of the reasons, one of the many reasons why politicians actually don't get things done is they don't know how, and they don't know the methodologies or things required to actually follow through. So it'll be interesting to see, but again, went extremely viral, and even though he's not officially running anymore, Vivek dropped out for the Republican nominee to be for the presidential election. It's interesting he's still continuing to stay very active in politics. It'll be interesting to see what the future is for his political career. Other interesting political news, you have MSNBC claims that Biden is, quote, far beyond cogent, better than ever, unquote. And of course, they were immediately and viscerally ratioed on X Twitter. Now, this was first brought to the service from The Blaze and then reposted by End Wokeness. And End Wokeness says, quote, Joe Scarborough goes full state TV, and it's only about a minute and 8 second long, though it might hurt your ears. And full disclosure or disclaimer here, though it's highly entertaining. So we'll play that quick clip.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now. He's cogent, but I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years.
I'm scrutinizing the screen in the little room that they're recording in on MSNBC, although it's basically DC for who they support. And I don't see a single bottle of Bud Light. So I don't think they're inebriated or drunk or, on perhaps copious amounts of medications. They seem to be, cognitive, saying this.
And I don't know if people knew this or not. Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth.
Jeez Louise, I almost feel like a joke from Batman. I thought my speaking was bad. Which, that accent or that attempt at the Joker's speech is also terrible. But, this guy's stumbling over his words more than me, which is saying quite a bit.
And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it. And
this is not a comedy, folks. This is a real clip of a recording on MSNBC. Which, again, we can debate the policies for, eons, Democrats versus Republicans and Joe Biden's track record. I don't know many people who think that he is cognitively the same even as when he was first elected. I mean, just look at the interviews, and I think most people, especially unless you're, a hardcore leftist, or I think most people who actually can observe and come to rational thoughts would see that he's clearly have cognitive decline. He's definitely not the same. I mean, watch his speeches from the 80s, the 90s. He always had a little bit of a stutter. Obviously, truth be told, so do I. So I can't cast too many stones, so to say. But, I mean, he was much more articulate and on point. When he was talking, even though, again, I disagree with a lot of the things he said throughout his career, he was able to articulate them prior. And nowadays, not so much. Though, perhaps I'm alone in this assessment. Maybe this person will get ratioed and everyone will say, oh no, we totally agree with MSNBC. I mean, probably not, but stab in the comments and find out. And again, as youth might say, it went viral to say the least. Granted, it happened a little last week. It got 3 million views and 15,000 likes. Now, one of the first comments comes from Paul Zazupa, and he says, quote, "This is far beyond state TV. No one in their right mind would ever say Joe Biden is cogent, clear, logical, and convincing, let alone functional. He's completely lost his marbles, and Joe Scarborough is pathological. No wonder MSN is tanking, and people like this employed, getting 1.7 thousand likes, which also shows my lack of pronunciation abilities, because I didn't pronounce cogent correctly. But I finally did just there and then. Took me a while. Let's see here. Freedom says, 1, this is insanely laughable. 2, there is no such thing as a best Biden. And he says, what Biden is your favorite? And it says, in 1991, attacked Anita Hill. 1994, wrote disastrous crime bill. 1995, wrote Omnibus Counterterrorism Act. Later, it became the Patriot Act. 1996, voted against gay marriage. Which, again, ask the average person on the street, I guarantee you they would never believe that. Just because, again, Biden right now is very pro-gay marriage. In 1999, he repealed the Glass-Steagall Act. 2001, voted for the Patriot Act. 2002, voted for Iraq War. 2005, voted to end bankruptcy protection for students. Wow. 2016, presents George W. Bush with Liberty Medal. And that compilation of pictures got 324 likes, which, again, student debt is one of the largest debts. And again, is the only, very uniquely, the only debt you cannot erase through bankruptcy. Everything else you can. Auto debt, mortgage, house debt, credit card debt, medical debt, all that can be erased through the bankruptcy process, except for student loans. In terms of value, granted, some colleges are great and you do meet some good people, get some unique skills and abilities, but a lot of colleges are pumping out those worthless degrees in underwater basket weaving and lesbian dance that are not applicable to getting a real job. I think that's why we're seeing the amount of people going to college decrease, and that's why a lot of people are starting to wake up to the fact of you don't need a college degree to actually succeed in life. Truth be told, on my interview podcast, I've met more millionaires who just have a high school education than people who have gone to college. Though, that little ADHD tangent aside, I'll go back to the actual comments. You have, let's see here, who is this? One bad dude saying, quote, "We are here," and is a picture saying the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final most essential demand. Unquote, George Orwell, 1984. Again, a brilliant book. It's sub $20 on the internet to buy the book. I can't recommend it enough. It's sad, but it's a timeless book. And that got 906 likes. Let's see here. Rare Imagery says, quote, "He's talking about this guy in his clip saying that Joe Biden's brain is toast." So let's play that really quick.
I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
What's your message for Super Tuesday voters? Everyone, Super Tuesday.
And I think a lot of people may have forgot he actually had a little card. When he supposedly calls on reporters, he has a list on who he's supposed to call, and he had that little cheat card that says exactly what he's supposed to do. Which again, he did not need that years ago. Let's see. Common Sense Prevails says, quote, "Is he speaking about him?" And it's Joe Biden saying, quote, "I don't want my children to grow up in a jungle, racial jungle," unquote. I believe that was, when did he say that? That article reiterating that coming to the surface was in 2020. That got 433 likes. The most famous quote, I think from the last election was from Biden saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, unquote. Which, again, if Trump said that, we would never hear the end of it, because, again, it's morally vacuous to say the least that someone has to vote. Your race is dependent on a vote for someone. Now, Sandy says accurate, and it's a picture of, what is it, Ron Burgundy from the TV, or the movie Anchorman, and the text says, quote, the problem with the leftist narrative is that keeps getting in the way, is that facts keep getting in the way, unquote, getting 351 likes. The Libercat Media TM says, quote, you don't hate them enough, and it's a meme that says the media is the enemy of the people, getting 728 likes. Now, that being said, I mean, X-Twitter is also the media. I'm sure this person is directly referencing the mainstream media, or the old legacy media that has been around for decades. Let's see. USA simply says, then he should have been indicted for taking confidential records and mishandling them. While VP and a senator, you can't have it both ways. Either unfit to stand trial and remove from office, or fit to stand trial and continue as illegitimate president of the United States. Quote, getting 280 likes, referencing the United States Department of Justice actually saying they're not going to press charges against Joe Biden because of the Burisma and the bribery, because they say he's too old to basically comprehend what he's doing. The Department of Justice said that. And granted, maybe Biden, I mean, there's some people joking, maybe he's faking all of this, or maybe it's just like, oh yeah, they're, winking and nod, one hand washing the other, so to say. But that's legit. That did happen recently. Maria Isbell says barely, and it's a clip from the Babylon Bee saying, quote, Biden annual physical confirms he is technically still alive, unquote, getting 779 likes. Interesting enough, I'm trying to see if there's any contrarian statements. Let's see. Western Lesbian says Joe was at it all morning, quote, Trump's entire message is that America sucks, from the same people, or unquote, from the same people who want entire ideology that America is a fundamental racist, irredeemable country, getting 643 likes. Fiat Food says, quote, the emperor is wearing clothes. He's wearing clothes. Got it? Now tell the emperor how good he looks in his new clothes, unquote. And it's a cartoon of an emperor, in fact, walking around with no clothes on, just underwear. And there was a reference to the age-old tale in which no one is brave enough to actually tell the emperor that he has no clothes on except a young, innocent child. Spoiler alert for, I was going to say, that's an old fable from older than most of us have been alive, or much older than us have been alive. But still, I'll do a little spoiler alert, perhaps. They got 53 likes. So, scrolling through, just overwhelming support, or rather, support for and wokeness for ratioing MSNBC. And again, I don't know, I mean, I think a lot of people, there are people who love Biden's policies, there are people who support him, and I have a couple friends who are Biden supporters, and they'll probably vote for him. And yet, they admit it's more based on policies and the people around him than his actual individual cognitive abilities. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, because, again, with every election, you'll have people on the right and people on the left. They will vote for their parties no matter who is on the ballot. It's really about fighting about those middle voters, libertarian voters, who sometimes will acquiesce to vote for a particular party. How many of them could be compelled, how many of them could you win them over with your thoughts, ideals, and your prescriptions to actually solve problems in the United States? So it'll be interesting to see, because we've had this message for years that Joe Biden has decreased in cognitive ability, and that has been an applicable message before, and yet he still won in 2020, and I mean, it didn't seem to have too much effect on this campaign. I mean, truth be told, he campaigned from his basement and he still won. So, again, we've had this similar issue with the last election. Do you think this will actually have an impact on the upcoming election? Will more people see him in these interviews and these clips and think, well, maybe it is time for him to step aside? Like, let me know. Do you think it'll be a big point of contention? It'll be a big concern in this upcoming election? It'll maybe be a deal breaker for some folks? Or do you think it'll be very similar to 2020 where it seemed to have little to no impact at all? As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have ground cinnamon being recalled due to lead exposure, hitting 6 specific brands. Now, this comes to us thanks to Yahoo, which, perhaps I'm aging myself, they were around before Google. And hilariously and ironically enough, they turned down, I believe it was a $44 billion offer from Microsoft to buy them out. And subsequently, they later sold for like $4 billion to Verizon or someone, and they bought and sold a couple times. Again, you gotta sell when you're at your high point, but timing is everything in life. Now, they say they, quote, FDA warns consumers to stop using 6 brands of ground cinnamon found to have heavy levels of lead. Now, unfortunately, there's apparently already been cases, and this is also Some are alleging or thinking it might be in correlation to the Wanabana or Wanabana. To me, that's an F- for marketing if it's hard to pronounce, or I don't know. I get it's a kid's applesauce in a pouch that was being recalled because there's lead contamination, and it was also the cinnamon flavor. So a lot of people are starting to speculate maybe it's because the cinnamon was added to the applesauce. Now, unfortunately, with the applesauce, about 460 cases have been confirmed of people negatively affected by it, which is especially tragic because, again, the main demographic for people buying the little applesauce in the pouches is children. Though truth be told, back in my day, we just used all you had was the the little metal top and a little plastic cup. You rip that off. And on those tough days where there wasn't a clean spoon in the drawer, you'd actually fold the top metal part, and then almost like aluminum foil in terms of the thinness, and turn that into a spoon. Those are tough times. Not kidding, obviously, but nevertheless. Now, it looks like the FDA is also advising these companies specifically to stop selling them. Now, the specific companies that are being affected by this are La Fiesta, lot number 25033, that were sold at La Superior Supermercados. Markham, Best Buy dates October 16, 2025, and April 6, 2025, sold at Save a Lot. Also, MTCI, which F- for marketing. Again, it probably stands for something, but the brand is called MTCI. That was sold at SF Supermarket. You have SWAD. The lot number affected is KX. K is in Kazoo. X is in X. 21223. That was sold at Patel Brothers specifically. You have Super Tradition with the best by date use by dates of April 2025 and September 2025. Those were sold at Dollar Tree and Family Dollar, as well as El Chira, which I was going to say you might want to write these down. The lot numbers affected are F275EX1023. Again, that lot number is F275EX1023, as well as lot number D300EX1024, which were sold at La Jolla Morelands in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, specifically, they note the concentration of lead in the ground cinnamon products range from 2 to 3.4 parts per million, according to the FDA. The concentrations of lead found in the cinnamon applesauce pouches were thousands of times higher, between 2,300 parts per million or 5,100 parts per million. Now, they say that most people have no obvious immediately symptoms of lead exposure. The FDA says that someone who had maybe affected or exposed to the levels of lead should reach out to a healthcare provider to get tested. And again, that's also one of the biggest detriments and sad things about lead exposure is a long-term over time. And the younger you are, the more immediately negatively affected you are. So again, I'm not sure who's in charge of the quality assurance for all these companies, but I mean, especially if you're in charge of food products, and again, it does take time and money to do those things, but it just going to take a little extra time to test for one of the most hazardous elements in the periodic table. And now, if I was a parent or if I was, someone especially concerned with their health, I mean, I would avoid those brands like the plague, or like a Bud Light. Like, I wouldn't go near that with a 10-foot pole. So it'll be interesting to see if these companies ever recover in terms of, will this have a huge impact on their sales? But again, having one of the most hazardous metals on the periodic table of elements in your cinnamon, in your food, or seasoning in this case, that certainly is the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Sharing it also does help with the manageable YouTube algorithms. Also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.